Okay, what's up guys? Today we're working on an Aarons 94 Civic hatch. Pretty sure that it spun a bearing. Not 100% sure yet. We're getting ready to drain the oil to verify for sure. If we can't find specific chips, we're going to drop the oil pan and check the bearings that way. We think that it's possible there's something else going on because we just found that the crank bolt has come completely out and was sitting inside the pulley. So we're going to check other options, but we think what we're probably going to end up doing is pulling this engine out tonight, most likely. And so we're going to go ahead and get into it and see what we find out.
We started by draining the oil. It looked good, but still weren't convinced that it wasn't a rod bearing. We went ahead and checked a couple easy things like the rocker arm assembly. They all ended up looking just fine. Checked over the axles. We had one that seemed a bit off, but found nothing there. That led us back to removing the oil pan, finding out for sure if the issue is in the block or elsewhere.
Okay, I'm going to apologize for poor audio because I'm going to be using the camera audio instead of the good audio here, but here's exactly what we're doing. In the engine, here's your piston and rod. Looks like this. Crankshaft goes in here. Basically, to tell if you have an actual spun bearing, what you can do is you drop the oil pan, and if you just grab a hold of that rod the way that it sits in there, and you shake the bottom of it where it connects to the crankshaft, if it moves, you have a spun bearing. If it's solid or just might have a tiny bit of play, but if it's got room, then you know you've got a spun bearing, and that's the end of it. It's time to replace it. But if it's solid, then you're good to go. So that's what we're checking on right now.
I'm pretty sure we're solid.
All four of them?
Yeah.
Okay, so after checking this, good news and bad news. Good news is it doesn't look like we have any spun bearings. Trying to shake that rod, like I was explaining, there's no movement. They're nice and tight. That's good news because we don't have to rebuild this block. We don't think anyway, unless there's something piston-wise. But I really don't think that's the case. Looks like the block's good. This sound we're hearing is probably coming from the transmission at this point. So that's good because we have like a billion other transmissions we can try. But it looks like we don't have to rebuild this for like the 18 billionth time, which is great. So, moving on.
So it was at this point that we decided to go ahead and pull out the transmission to check and see if there's anything going on with the clutch or the flywheel or even the transmission itself. Yeah, well, there's your problem.
Okay, we found the problem.
So yeah, we have about 3 flywheel bolts that are backed out, most likely causing that flywheel to just rattle around. If that's not in, I don't know what it is.
Alright, so turned out to not actually be spun rod bearing. It actually ended up being loose flywheel bolts. After a few hours of diagnosis, we finally figured that out. Got the flywheel bolts tightened back up and torqued properly with some Loctite on them as well. Got the transmission back on, got some fluid in the transmission. Now we just need to go get our oil pan gasket, get our oil pan on there, and finish buttoning everything up, and we'll give it a drive. See that in another video.